Never book this type of cruise cabin. It could ruin your entire vacation before it even begins. One wrong location, and you're tossing in bed all night, fighting seasickness, or listening to thumping bass through the walls until 2 a.m. The worst part? You won't realize you made the mistake until it's way too late. Ready to avoid disaster before you even step on board? Choosing the right cruise cabin isn't just about price or view. It's about location, noise, motion, and access. And unfortunately, most passengers don't find out they've booked a bad one until they're already stuck with it. That's why in this video, we're breaking down the 5 worst cabin locations you should avoid at all costs, and then flipping it with 5 of the best cabin types that experienced cruisers always try to grab first. These aren't generic tips. We're talking real noise traps, seasick zones, and overlooked perks that can make or break your week at sea. You'll learn why cabins under the pool deck can destroy your sleep, how a so-called cheap deal in the wrong spot could lead to nonstop motion sickness, and which cabins are surprisingly peaceful, perfectly located, and way more comfortable than you'd expect. Whether it's your first cruise or your 10th, this guide will help you book smarter, cruise happier, and avoid the silent mistakes that cost you comfort, rest, and joy. So grab your cruise planner, because once you hear about some of these cabin nightmares and the sweet spots you should aim for instead, you'll never book the same way again. Let's dive into the worst cabin on the list, and you've probably seen it without realizing how bad it actually is. Mark thought he scored a great deal when he booked a cabin on Deck 9. It had a central location, close to the buffet and pool. Perfect, right? Not quite. By 6 a.m. on his very first morning, he was wide awake, thanks to the screeching sound of deck chairs dragging across metal directly overhead. Add in early risers stomping around in flip-flops, the thud of cleaning carts rolling out from the storage rooms, and the steady drip of splashing water from the pool. And Mark quickly realized this wasn't going to be the relaxing escape he imagined. Cabins located directly underneath the pool deck are some of the noisiest on the entire ship, and most first-time cruisers have no idea. Unlike hotels, cruise ships don't have thick, sound-insulated floors. When someone above moves furniture, drops something, or runs across the deck, you hear it, and it doesn't stop in the morning. Pool decks host afternoon games, music, live events, and late-night cleanup. Some passengers report hearing noise from 6 a.m. until nearly midnight every single day. The result? Disrupted sleep, irritated mornings, and zero peace in the one space that's supposed to feel like a retreat. And if you're a light sleeper, it's even worse. You might find yourself more tired at sea than you are at home, all because you booked a room without realizing what was above you. Here's the fix. Always check the ship's deck plan before choosing your cabin. Look for a stateroom that is located between 2 decks of other cabins, one above and one below. This is the quietest zone on most ships. Avoid anything directly beneath the pool, buffet, or gym, because if noise is already a problem from above, just wait until you see what happens when your cabin shares a wall with one of the ship's loudest entertainment zones. Tip number 2 is the reason so many cruisers pack earplugs and still regret their cabin choice. Jenny and her husband were excited to be just a few doors down from the theater. We'll catch every show, they thought. What they didn't plan for was the bass thumping through their walls every single night, like someone was blasting a concert in their closet. Even after the show ended, the sound of stage crew packing up and drunk guests laughing and shouting in the hallway kept them up until after 1 a.m. By day 3, they were exhausted and suddenly not so interested in catching another live performance. Cabins near entertainment venues like theaters, nightclubs, or casinos may seem exciting on paper, but they come with a hidden tax: non-stop noise. These areas are hotspots for late-night traffic, heavy footfall, and booming audio systems that travel through walls and ceilings like a subwoofer in your pillow. And it's not just the actual music or shows, it's the crowd before and after, the crew prepping behind the scenes, and the after-party chatter that drifts into nearby hallways. Some cruisers even report vibrating walls and light fixtures that shake in sync with the bass. If you're a night owl who doesn't mind falling asleep to surround sound, maybe it's not a deal breaker. But if you're like most people, looking to wind down at night or rest after a long port day, this cabin location can completely backfire, especially on party-friendly ships or themed cruises where the nightlife stretches well past midnight. Here's the fix. Book at least 2 decks above or below major entertainment venues. Theaters and casinos are usually located on mid-level decks. Avoid cabins directly adjacent or above them, and check for nightclubs hidden near stairwells or tucked behind lounges. They're often not well labeled on booking sites, because if sound from below and around is already this disruptive, imagine what happens when your whole cabin starts moving. Tip number 3 takes us into seasickness territory and the spot most likely to trigger it. Tom was thrilled to grab a super cheap deal on deck 3, all the way at the front of the ship. But the first night at sea changed everything. As the ship hit rougher waters, Tom felt the floor tilt beneath him. His stomach flipped. Walls creaked. Every time the ship rose and fell, it felt like an invisible hand was rocking his entire room. By morning, Tom was wrapped in a blanket, green-faced, and sipping ginger tea instead of enjoying breakfast. The cabin's bargain price suddenly came with a queasy price tag. The front of the ship, especially on lower decks near the bow, experiences the most motion when the ship sails through open water. Every wave, turn, or gust of wind is exaggerated here. While modern ships are equipped with stabilizers, physics still wins. The forward motion cuts into waves, creating a dramatic up and down movement that can feel like riding a slow, relentless roller coaster. And for passengers who are prone to motion sickness, this is the absolute worst place to be. Even if you've never been seasick before, it's risky. Some people don't feel it in open areas, but get hit hard once they lie down. The result? Nausea, dizziness, headaches, and a miserable first few days at sea. And when your cabin is far forward, even walking down the hallway can feel like walking uphill and downhill with every step. Want a smoother ride? Book a cabin midship on a middle deck. That's the ship's center of gravity, where movement is felt the least. If you're unsure about motion sensitivity, avoid decks near the waterline and the very front or very back of the ship, because feeling sick in your cabin is bad, but so is being constantly interrupted while you try to sleep. Up next, tip number 4 reveals the cabins where the noise never stops, not because of partying, but because of traffic. Megan was thrilled to find a cabin right by the elevators. Convenient, she thought. No long hallway walks, easy access to everything. But once the cruise began, that convenience came with a non-stop soundtrack. Dings, footsteps, rolling luggage at midnight, conversations echoing like a subway station. Every time someone pressed the elevator button, it chimed. Every time a group got back from the club, they laughed and talked outside her door. Even worse, the metal crew access door across the hall slammed open and shut dozens of times a day. By the end of the trip, Megan was craving silence more than sunshine. Cabins near elevators, stairwells, or crew access points are deceptively noisy. People naturally gather there. It's where families wait, kids run, drunk guests fumble with key cards, and crew members haul carts full of supplies. These areas are designed for function, not peace. But if your cabin is too close, you'll feel like you're living in a busy hallway instead of a private space. Even if you're not directly beside the elevator, being within just a few doors can mean constant disruption. And it's not just noise. There's often more foot traffic, less privacy, and a higher chance of overhearing awkward hallway arguments or loud kids sprinting back from the arcade. So what's the fix? When booking, look for a cabin at least 6 to 8 doors away from elevators or utility closets. If you're using a cruise line's interactive deck plan, zoom in and avoid cabins near the little box icons that show stairs, lifts, or crew corridors. Being a short walk away adds quiet and privacy and still keeps you close enough to access everything. Because you want your cabin to feel like a retreat, not a lobby. And speaking of retreats, our final bad cabin may seem harmless at first glance, until you realize you're stuck in the darkest, most isolated corner of the entire ship. Tip number 5 explains why some inside cabins feel more like closets, especially when they're miles from anything. Steve booked an inside cabin to save money. No windows, no balcony, just a simple space to sleep. But what he didn't realize was just how far it was from everything. Located deep in a maze-like corridor on the lowest deck, his room was surrounded by other inside cabins and felt completely cut off. Each morning, it took him almost 10 minutes to reach breakfast. At night, when he needed a snack or forgot something at the pool, it meant a long, frustrating walk. And the cabin itself, pitch black, no natural light, no sense of time, just 4 walls and the hum of the AC. Inside cabins already lack windows, fresh air, and a view. But when you place them far from stairs, elevators, or common areas, they can start to feel downright claustrophobic. For some passengers, especially those prone to anxiety, that windowless silence can feel disorienting or even depressing. You lose track of day and night, you feel more tired. And after a few days, even the ship's stunning destinations can't distract from how disconnected your room feels. Now, if you're the kind of person who just needs a place to crash and plans to be out all day, maybe this works. But for many, this kind of cabin becomes a low-energy zone that actually affects your mood and experience on board, especially when you're too far from the action to make quick trips for food, entertainment, or fresh air. The fix? If you do book an inside cabin, choose one near the center of the ship and close to elevators. Even without a window, that proximity to everything makes a big difference. And better yet, consider upgrading to a room with at least a virtual window or light strip. It helps more than you think, because you deserve better than a box in the belly of the ship. And now that we've covered the worst, it's time to talk about the best. Up next, tip number 6 kicks off our list of smart, comfortable, and peaceful cabin locations, starting with the smoothest ride on the ship. Linda was a little nervous about her first cruise. She'd heard horror stories about motion sickness and wanted to play it safe. So she booked a midship cabin on deck 7, right in the heart of the ship. By the time the ship hit a patch of rough water, Linda barely felt it. While others were popping Dramamine and holding onto handrails, she slept through it like a baby. Her secret? She chose the most stable location on the entire vessel. Midship cabins, especially on middle decks, are the sweet spot for comfort. This is where the ship's movement is most balanced. You're not swinging side to side like the bow, and you're not bobbing with every wave like the stern. Being in the center means less sway, fewer sudden tilts, and a smoother ride overall. Even seasoned cruisers recommend it for light sleepers or anyone prone to seasickness. But stability isn't the only perk. These cabins often offer easy access to everything. You're equidistant from dining, pools, theaters, and elevators, which means less walking and less time navigating the ship. It's not just physically easier, it mentally grounds you. When your cabin is centrally located, the whole cruise feels more manageable and relaxing. Want to lock in the comfort? Choose a midship cabin that's also between 2 other cabin decks. That gives you quiet neighbors above and below, reducing the chance of late-night noise from public areas. It's a smart move that combines peace, balance, and convenience all in one booking. Because starting and ending each day in a calm, easy-to-reach location makes a huge difference. And if you want calm with a killer view and fewer crowds, wait until you see what happens when you head toward the very back of the ship. Tip number 7 is the ultimate hidden gem for peaceful cruising. Jacob and Mia didn't want the crowds. They didn't care about being close to the pool or the theater. What they wanted was peace, and they found it in an aft-facing balcony cabin. Tucked at the very back of the ship, their room gave them a stunning view of the ocean wake, a quieter hallway, and some of the best sunsets they had ever seen. While other passengers were dodging noise and foot traffic midship, Jacob and Mia sipped wine on their private balcony, listening to the soothing churn of the ship slicing through water. Aft balcony cabins, the ones at the rear of the ship, offer a unique experience most cruisers never consider. Not only are they usually quieter due to fewer neighboring cabins and less hallway traffic, but the views are unmatched. You're not just staring at open ocean, you're watching the ship's entire journey unfold behind you. It feels cinematic, peaceful, almost meditative. And here's a bonus. Some aft balconies are larger than standard ones, especially on older or uniquely designed ships. You might get extra space to stretch out, lounge in the sun, or even set up a small breakfast table. And because they're farther from public venues, the walk back to your room acts like a natural buffer, keeping noise and party traffic far away from your door. Just one heads up. If you're extremely motion sensitive, the rear of the ship can feel a bit more movement in choppy waters, especially on smaller vessels. But for most passengers, the trade-off in scenery, quiet, and privacy is absolutely worth it. And if peace and beauty are your priorities, wait until you hear what happens when you book a cabin near the spa. Tip number 8 reveals a low-key luxury that most cruisers completely overlook. And it comes with way more than just quiet hallways. Monica booked a spa-class balcony cabin on a whim. She didn't know what to expect, but from the moment she stepped inside, she could feel the difference. Soft lighting, plush robes, calming scents, and zero hallway chaos. Her cabin was just a few steps from the ship's wellness center, but what really surprised her was how quiet the entire section was. No running kids, no party crowds, just peaceful passengers and serene surroundings. Spa-class cabins, or even standard cabins located near the spa, tend to be in some of the quietest areas of the ship. These zones are designed to promote relaxation, so they naturally attract guests who aren't on the cruise to party all night. That alone can improve your quality of sleep and daily mood. But spa-class cabins go further. Many include exclusive perks like access to the thermal suite, upgraded bathroom amenities, infused shower heads, yoga mats, or discounts on treatments. Some even feature spa-style beds and upgraded air filtration systems. And here's the kicker. These cabins often cost less than you'd expect, especially compared to suites or higher-end balcony rooms. You get a wellness vibe, added perks, and a better night's sleep, all without the sticker shock of a full-blown suite. If spa class isn't available, even choosing a cabin just down the hall from the spa can pay off. These areas are usually isolated from noisy public decks and far from high-traffic spots like elevators, arcades, or theaters. Because cruising should feel like a retreat, not a rave. And if you're after something even more special, something that feels like your own corner of the ocean, the next tip takes things up a notch. Tip number 9 shows how a corner or rear-facing suite can give you panoramic views, extra space, and a VIP experience without breaking the bank. When Sarah opened the curtains in her corner suite, her jaw dropped. On one side, she had a sweeping view of the sunrise across the horizon. On the other, the ship's endless wake trailed behind like a ribbon of foam. Her balcony wrapped around 2 sides of the cabin, giving her double the space, double the scenery, and 0 interruptions. No noisy neighbors, no hallway traffic, just privacy, peace, and panoramic views. Corner suites or rear-facing corner cabins are one of cruising's best-kept secrets. These rooms are often located at the very aft corners of the ship, and they're designed with more square footage, oversized balconies, and extra windows, sometimes even floor-to-ceiling glass. You feel tucked away, like the ship built the space just for you. And while they might be technically categorized as suites, many are only slightly more expensive than premium balcony rooms, especially on older ships or less crowded itineraries. It's not just about looks either. These cabins tend to be quieter since they're at the far end of hallways, away from elevators and public zones. That means fewer interruptions, more space to breathe, and a private spot to watch sunsets, read, or sip your morning coffee in total silence. For couples, solo travelers, or anyone craving a little extra serenity without paying luxury suite prices, this option delivers in every way. Pro tip: book early. These rooms go fast, and there usually aren't many available per sailing. Look for deck plans with wraparound balconies and enlarged corner layouts. They're not always labeled clearly, but once you find one, you'll never go back to a standard room. And finally, if you're someone who loves a view but also wants easy access to everything without sacrificing sleep, you'll want to hear tip number 10. It's the cabin that checks almost every box for first-timers and veterans alike. Tanya had cruised before, inside cabins, ocean views, even an aft suite once, but this time, she picked a simple balcony cabin on deck 9, just high enough to enjoy panoramic views, but low enough to avoid pool deck chaos. What she discovered was a sweet spot she hadn't expected: quiet nights, shorter walks, and a private balcony that became her favorite part of the entire cruise. She drank her morning coffee out there, watched dolphins leap during sea days, caught golden sunsets without fighting for a spot on the public deck. Balcony cabins on mid to high decks are a fantastic middle ground for almost every kind of traveler. You get the benefit of fresh air, natural light, in your own private outdoor space, without the extreme motion of top decks or the foot traffic of lower levels. These cabins are typically above the lifeboats for an unobstructed view, but still under the busiest public areas, which means you're not getting stomped on by poolgoers or dance parties. Plus, they tend to be more centrally located, so you're just a few minutes from food, entertainment, or fitness, without long elevator waits or marathon hallway walks. Many cruisers find this range, usually decks 7 to 10, to be the most balanced in terms of noise, motion, and convenience. The best move? Book a balcony cabin away from elevators and stairwells, ideally one that's midship. You'll get a smooth ride, a peaceful night, and one of the most satisfying spots to unwind at sea. Because when your cabin is calm, clean, and well-placed, it's not just where you sleep, it's where you recharge. And now that you know the 5 worst and 5 best cabin choices, let's wrap up with a few thoughts that'll help you cruise smarter from this point forward. Thanks so much for watching. Your cabin choice can make or break your cruise. And now you've got the inside edge most passengers never even think about. Did you ever book a cabin you loved or totally regretted? I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below and type "smooth sailing" if you learned something new today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like and subscribe so you never get stuck with a noisy, seasick, or overcrowded cabin again. Until then, happy sailing, and may your next cabin come with quiet nights, smooth seas, and a perfect view.